when God called a general by name. There are people walking this earth right now carrying a secret so heavy it would break you if you knew. This is the story of one of them, a man who had the power to end lives with a single word, yet could not find one night of peace. What happened to him in the dark of his palace will change the way you see God forever. Stay with me. You do not want to miss what comes next. Drop a comment right now and tell me where you are watching or reading from. Let us connect as family and pray for one another. My name is Hassan Yusuf al-Rashidi. I was born in 1961 in a military compound on the edge of a great desert in North Africa. By the time I was 45 years old, I was the commander-in-chief and president of my nation. I had tanks, I had power, I had fear, and I had absolutely nothing. This is my story. I grew up inside walls of iron and discipline. My father was a brigadier general. Before I was old enough to shave, I already knew how to strip a rifle clean in under a minute. Faith, to me, was a weapon too. I memorized entire chapters of the Quran. I prayed louder than the imam sometimes, but deep inside the chest of young Hassan was not a worshipping heart. It was an ambitious, angry, hollow one. By age 42, I had engineered a military takeover that placed me in the presidential palace. The crowds cheered that day. I stood on the balcony, chest full of medals, waving at thousands of faces. I felt like a god. What I did not know was that I was standing at the edge of a cliff, and the only thing that could save me was the one name I had spent my whole life despising: Jesus. I hated that name. I signed laws that shut down churches. I taught my soldiers to distrust Christians. I believed Christianity was weakness dressed in foreign clothing. It started in 2006 during the dry season. The same dream every night for weeks. I was standing in a burning desert in a torn uniform. My mouth was cracked and bleeding from thirst. I looked at my hands and saw them covered in dark stains, and I knew, the way you know things in dreams, that it was blood I was responsible for. I would wake up gasping. My personal doctor came twice a week. He ran tests. He gave me tablets. Nothing worked. My wife Miriam would find me sitting at the window at 3 in the morning staring at the dark city below. She told me I was becoming a stranger. One night, alone in the palace courtyard with my guards posted at a distance, I looked up at the sky and whispered something I had never said in all my years of power. I asked whoever was listening why I had no peace. I was a president. I owned palaces, and I was the most terrified man I knew. That was the night everything shifted. I did not hear a sound with my physical ears. Something spoke inside the center of my chest. Not my thoughts, not imagination. Something entirely other. It asked me why I had spent my whole life fighting something I had never truly examined. 3 nights later, sitting up in bed in complete darkness, the room filled with a light that had no source. It did not come from the window. It simply was. And standing in the middle of that light was a figure in white, brighter than anything I had ever seen. He looked at me. That was what destroyed me, not the light, not the supernatural presence in my locked, guarded bedroom. It was the look on his face. I had been looked at by thousands, soldiers, diplomats, enemies, begging for mercy. Nobody had ever looked at me the way he did. He looked at me the way a father looks at a son he has been searching for across a long and painful distance. He revealed to me that he was Jesus. He showed me my own life as though from above. The boy I had been, the violence of the man I became, the blood I was responsible for, and he made it clear that through all of it, he had never stopped loving me. I fell off my bed onto the marble floor. I lay there, the most powerful man in my nation, weeping like a lost child who had finally found his way home. For months I lived a double life. In public, I was still President Hassan al-Rashidi, the Iron General. In private, I was a hungry, broken man reading a hidden Bible obtained through my most trusted guard, Bilal, who had served me faithfully for 11 years. I asked Bilal to find me a Christian leader. He said nothing and asked nothing. 2 weeks later, he arranged a meeting with an elderly pastor named Father Emmanuel, who had once led hundreds of believers before my government shut every church in the capital. He now lived in hiding, risking arrest every week to serve a small, scattered congregation. We met in a storage room beneath the palace kitchen. When Father Emmanuel walked in and recognized my face, he lowered himself to his knees, not in honor, but in terror. He was certain he had been brought there to be executed. I told him to stand. I told him he was safe. Then I told him the truth about what I had seen. He covered his face and wept. We spoke for 4 hours. He showed me from a worn, small Bible who Jesus truly was. Not a distant figure, not a lesser prophet, but a living God who had carried the punishment for the worst things every human being had ever done, including a president who had signed papers leading to the imprisonment and death of innocent people. I got onto my knees on that cold concrete floor and gave what was left of me to Jesus. Father Emmanuel told me later that in all his years of ministry he had never seen anything like that moment. I wish I could tell you that what followed was only beautiful. It was not, and I want you to understand what happened next, because this is the part that most people never hear, and it is the part that matters most. Within 6 weeks, whispers moved to the palace like smoke. My intelligence chief, General Forrest, came to my office one morning, closed the door quietly, and told me that senior military figures were meeting privately to discuss what should be done about me. The senior clerics had sent a formal letter demanding a public declaration of faith. He told me, very calmly, that men had been killed in our country for far less. I told him the truth anyway. Within 4 days, a recording of my conversation with Father Emmanuel was leaked to the media. By evening, the streets outside the palace gates were full of protesters carrying signs with my face crossed out in red. 3 of my generals publicly withdrew their loyalty. Religious leaders declared me an apostate. My eldest son stopped answering my calls. Both of my wives left with the children. They did not say goodbye. They simply were gone when I woke up one morning. And the silence in those palace corridors was louder than any battlefield I had ever stood on. My security team shrank overnight. A device was found beneath the desk in my private office. There were nights I heard movement outside my bedroom door. I did not know if the men on the other side were there to guard me or to end me. I ate food that was tested first in case of poison. I, the man who had once ruled an entire nation, was now a prisoner in a golden cage, and the cage was closing. I knelt every one of those nights and prayed, not from habit, not for appearances. I prayed because it was the only true thing remaining in that building full of power and fear. Father Emmanuel got a message to me through Bilal. A plan had been confirmed at the level of senior military command. I had 72 hours. At 2:30 in the morning, in March of 2007, I dressed in plain clothes, simple trousers, a long coat, a scarf across my face. I left my medals on the desk. I left my uniform hanging in the wardrobe. I took 3 things: my Bible, a small amount of cash, and a photograph of my mother from when I was 7 years old. Bilal drove a kitchen supply vehicle through the sleeping city. At a checkpoint on the northern road, a young soldier shone a torch into the car and studied my face. I held completely still. My heart was louder than anything. Bilal told him we were carrying medical supplies. The soldier stared at me one moment longer, then waved us through. We drove 7 hours. A network of underground Christian workers, people who do this with no recognition, no salary, at daily risk of their lives, passed me from one safe house to the next. A farming family hid me in their home. They knew exactly who I was. They had seen my face on television for years. They fed me warm food, gave me a blanket, and prayed over me with tears running down their faces. 3 nights later, under complete darkness, I crossed into a neighboring country on foot through a mountain pass. I was 45 years old. I carried a Bible and nothing else of value. I spent the first year in a small rented room, reading, praying, healing slowly. Word traveled through Christian communities. Churches invited me to speak. I stood before people who had every reason to distrust a man with my history, and I told them everything, not a polished version, but the real and ugly truth of what I had done, and what Jesus had found when he reached into the darkest corner of me and refused to leave. People wept. People believed. One day a letter reached me, passed through 4 different hands before arriving. It was written in Arabic, from inside my own country. The writer had heard my story through a smuggled recording. The letter closed with 5 words that broke me completely. It said, "I belong to him now." I do not know who wrote it. I may never know, but heaven knows. To every Christian reading or watching this, please, I am asking you, pray for those who are suffering for the same faith you practice in freedom. There are believers in prison cells right now who have lost their families, their safety, their children, and their futures because they chose Jesus. Do not take your open Bible for granted. Pray for the persecuted church, even when you do not know their names. And if something in your chest has been burning as you read this, if you have been searching and finding nothing, pray this with me right now. Wherever you are, Lord Jesus, I believe you are real. I believe you died for me and rose again. I have lived without you and I am tired of it. Forgive me. Come into my life. I open the door. I am yours. If you prayed that, find a Bible. Find other believers. Tell someone. You have just begun the greatest journey of your life. My name was Hassan Yusuf al-Rashidi. I was a general. I was feared by many and loved by few. Today I am simply a servant of the King of Kings, and there is no title on this earth I would trade it for. If this story moved you, please share it. Leave a comment and subscribe. The same Jesus who found a president weeping on a palace floor is looking for you, right where you are. To him be all the glory, always.